I am going to reconvene the open session of our Riverside Unified School District Board of Trustees regular meeting tonight, June 2nd. We just came out of a closed session where no action was taken. I would like to start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Could you please come forward and lead us? Mr. Mendoza.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Mr. Hunt, I think you have something about Mr. Mendoza.
Thank you, President. And members of the board and the audience, tonight's pledge ambassador is Brian Mendoza. Brian is this tall young man up front here. Brian is a 6th grade student in Mrs. Wells' class at Jefferson Elementary. Brian is the youngest of 3 children and has been a student of Jefferson since the kindergarten. So congratulations, Ms. Wells. Brian has volunteered to put up the flag in front of the school every day this year. He is an outstanding student and works hard in class, we're told. He is dedicated and committed. Brian is also his class speaker for promotion. You plan to run for school board or anything, Brian? I just want to check that out. In his spare time, Brian enjoys playing soccer. Jefferson is going to miss him after this year. Where are you going next year, Brian?
Gage.
You're going to Gage. And did you bring some guests with you? Well, of course, Miss Wells is here. You want to introduce everybody?
My teacher, Miss Wells. My principal, Mrs. Ortega. My mom, Marisela. My dad, Patricio. My grandma, Raquel. My sister, Giselle. My brother, Jose, and his friend, Gustavo.
Is that it? Okay. Grandma, welcome. We're glad to have you here. We're going to get a picture real quick. We have a certificate on behalf of the entire board thanking you for this, and we know you're going to do well at Gage next year. I think we have a wide angle. So good. That's good. How are you? Congratulations. You're a wonderful son. Thank you, sir.
How are you?
Very good. Go here. Got the cousin picture for next time. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think you already got the memo that you can leave or stay if you'd like. So, thank you. I know you have a lot to do this evening. Very quickly, while they're leaving, I did want to remind our board as well as remember that we are live streaming and our mics pick up everything on live streaming. So if you're not speaking, you might want to shut it off and just get in the habit of pushing it on when you have something to say because it picks up just about everything. Thank you. I would like to move on to the next section of our meeting. We're going to be doing some presentations. This is always a very exciting time of year, isn't it, Dr. Ermert?
It is, Mrs. Lockdoss and Mr. Fine, members of the board. We continue our recognitions of our outstanding students this evening. And one of the most proudest moments that we have every year is when we get to look at and introduce our International Baccalaureate diploma candidates. And this year I'm very pleased to announce that we have many more than we ever have had in the past. Tonight we have 57 IB diploma candidates. Our highest previous total was 35. So we're very excited about this. So with that, I'd like to ask the North High School Principal, Dr. Lynn Sheffield, to come forward and begin us with the recognition.
Good evening, Board President, board members, and Superintendent Fine. It is an extreme honor to be here this evening. I'm very excited to introduce you to a very educated group of individual students. I think they are not only the best and the brightest of John W. North, of Riverside Unified, but of Riverside County. I believe these students have been accepted to my alma mater, USC, to that little place across town, UCLA, to MIT. So we are very excited to have this large group of students here, and I'm going to bring our IB coordinator, Ms. Christine Shive, to introduce the students to you.
Thank you.
Dr. Sheffield.
Good evening,
Shive.
Mr. Fine,
Ms.
Mrs.
Shive,
Lockdoss.
sorry,
Oh,
excuse me. I had a request from Mr. Hunt to, UCLA grad. To, if
We have a few of those also.
and perhaps it's in your comments, but he wanted to know just what exactly it takes to be an IB diploma.
I'm going to tell you.
Great, thank you.
So, good evening, and it is my pleasure to be here tonight to introduce to you the 57 International Baccalaureate Diploma candidates for the class of 2014 at John W. North High School. It is probably fairly widely known that as diploma candidates, these students have undertaken at least 6 IB examinations, 5 of them in the last couple of weeks, researched and written an extended essay of 3,000 to 4,000 words, participated in the Theory of Knowledge course and its externally assessed essay and presentation, and completed in excess of 150 extracurricular hours in the areas of creativity, action, and service to their community. What is probably less understood is the incredible commitment and perseverance this experience requires and the myriad of other obstacles that present themselves along the way. These amazing students balance hours of daily homework, journals, and assignments while studying, completing projects, completing community and volunteer activities, school clubs and sports, student government responsibilities, jobs, and family commitments. They find time to tutor peers, apply for scholarships, and still manage a smile for me when I hound them about an impending deadline or ask for volunteers to represent our school and our program after little to no sleep. As one candidate explained, the IB program has been the toughest challenge that I've faced thus far in my life. But through this program, I've developed speaking skills, time management, and most importantly, I've discovered mental and emotional strengths within myself that I would have never known I had if I wasn't a part of IB. I've made lifelong friends who share the same struggles as me, and for that, I'm appreciative of the IB program. Without hesitation, I can also tell you that my job as the IB coordinator over the last 8 years has challenged me more than any other experience in my life. Surprisingly, it does not get easier each year, so perhaps I'm doing something wrong. However, the devotion to our school and our community that these students exhibit pushes me to represent them to the best of my ability each day and to continue to strive to make our program the best that it can be. Our IB program has recently been recognized as a champion on the rise by the Fair Housing Council of Riverside County for the work of our students in giving back to the community and for taking a path to better themselves, and also as a 2014 Model of Academic Excellence by the Riverside County Office of Education for our combined efforts with our AVID program to increase student achievement in rigorous courses while expanding access. Our IB diploma candidates give freely of themselves to educational experiences. They work tremendously hard. They network with experience, articulate their thoughts with clarity and purpose, appreciate the differences and diversity around them, adeptly procrastinate and negotiate, and are unquestionably prepared to take on the adult world and its challenges. Talk to them. I think you'll be inspired by the depth that you'll find. These students include several UC Regents Scholars, National Merit Finalists, AP National Scholars, Riverside's Most Remarkable Teens, CIF Champion Athletes in a couple of sports, and members of the All-County Academic Team. Nearly all of them will receive the seal of biliteracy. They also include every one of our 4 valedictorians and 7 salutatorians, and this fall these students will represent our USD and North High School at more than 32 different colleges, universities, and academies in 12 states. At this time, I would like to invite Mr. Fine, if you would, to come and help me recognize these students by giving them a medallion as they are introduced. In the interest of time, because there are a lot of them, I will be introducing the students in alphabetical order, and I would appreciate if the applause is held until the end. Okay. And I am going to introduce all of the students, although I know there are a couple who aren't here with us tonight. So our first student is Osiel Amador, and Osiel will be attending... I know Ostin's right. Osiel Amador will be attending the University of California, Irvine. Next is Ostin Anderson, and Ostin will be attending the University of California, Los Angeles. Next we have Anna Marshad, and Anna will be attending the University of California, Santa Barbara. Next we have Trevor Barth, and Trevor will be attending the University of Colorado at Boulder. Next we have Justin James Berg, and Justin will be attending the University of Redlands. Next we have Sydney Birnbaum, and Sydney will be attending the University of California, Irvine. Next we have Francis Bojorquez, and Francis will be attending the University of California, Riverside. Next we have Austin James Borja, and Austin will be attending the University of Pennsylvania. Next we have Josie Bradshaw, and Josie will be attending the University of California, Davis. Next we have Jufu Sai, and Jufu will be attending the University of California, Irvine. Next we have Lizbeth Calderon, and Lizbeth will be attending the University of California, Riverside. Next we have Tyler Castleman, and Tyler will be attending the United States Merchant Marine Academy in New York. Next we have Stephen Chang, and Stephen will be attending the University of California, San Diego. Next we have Juan Chavez, and Juan will be attending the University of California, Santa Cruz. Next we have Jordan Cohen, and Jordan will be attending the University of California, Riverside. Next we have Luis Cortina, and Luis will be attending Johns Hopkins University. Next we have Brea Cubitt, and Brea will be attending the University of Missouri at Columbia. Next we have Janelli Diego, and Janelli will be attending the University of California, Riverside. Next we have James Ding, and James will be attending the University of California, San Diego. Next we have Noah Fugate, and Noah will be attending the University of California, Los Angeles. Next we have Julian Giza, and Julian will be attending Riverside Community College. Next we have Delfina Gutierrez, and Delfina will be attending the University of California, Riverside. Next we have Jocelyn Gutierrez, and Jocelyn will be attending Riverside Community College. Next we have Roberto Gutierrez, and Roberto will be attending the University of Southern California. There are 4 for USC. Next we have Mauricio Hernandez, and Mauricio will be attending Reed College. Next we have Selena Howard, and Selena will be attending the University of Southern California. And we have Serena Howard, who will also be attending the University of Southern California. Next we have Joshua Jones, who will be attending the University of California, Irvine. Yes, USC. Next we have Amir Kelly, who will be attending Chapman University. Next we have Chris Key, who will be attending the University of California, Berkeley. Next we have Alexia Cook, who will be attending the University of California, Davis. Next we have Arthur Love, and Arthur will be attending Washington and Lee University. Next we have Tanya Martinez, and Tanya will be attending the University of California, Riverside. Next we have Gilberto Melendez, and Gilberto will be attending California State University, San Bernardino. Next we have Diego Monterosa, who will be attending Cal Poly Pomona. Next we have Oscar Nava, who will be attending Whittier College. Next, we have Lynn Novak, who will be attending Western Washington University. Next, we have Rahima Ocheng, who will be attending Oakwood University. Next, we have Esmeralda Ochoa, who will be attending the University of California, San Diego. You guys can go on the other side. It is okay. You were trying, but they weren't conforming. Next, we have Samad Patel, who will be attending the University of California, Los Angeles. Yeah, you can go that way. Next, we have Dominique McDonald Rogers, who will be attending the University of California, Los Angeles, majoring in math, I'm proud to say. Next, we have Cesar Rivas Sanchez, who will be attending the University of Southern California. Next, we have Noah Schlenk, who will be attending Whitman College. Next, we have Jelani Smith, who will be attending Iowa State University. Next, we have Katja Mafra Spencer, who will be attending Pitzer College. Next, we have Shannon Schweitzer, who will be attending the University of California, Riverside, also majoring in math. Next, we have Claire Takeshita, who will be attending Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Next, we have Savannah Valenzuela, who will be attending St. John's University. Next, we have Omar Velasquez, who will be attending Harvey Mudd College. Next, we have Michael Wang, who will be attending the University of California, San Diego. Next, we have Ronnie Williams, who will be attending the University of California, Los Angeles. Next, we have Danny Wilson, who will be attending the University of California, Riverside. Next, we have Jonathan Zhu, who will be attending the University of California, Berkeley. Next, we have Forrest Yang, who will be attending the University of California, Berkeley. Next, we have Francois Yap, who will be attending the University of California, Los Angeles. And Diana Young, who will be attending the University of Notre Dame. And not with us tonight because he's already interning at the City of Hope is Leon Zhou, who will be attending the Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
So, Mrs. Shive, the ones going to USC, they're not football players?
Not a one of them.
Okay.
Lots of them are journalists, actually, right, guys?
All right.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
You gotta get a little closer. Make sure you can see. She's not tall enough.
That's a lot of brains. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, students. You guys may come on down. Congratulations.
Am I supposed to give this back or?
Hold it. Cheers.
I like your speech. It's beautiful. She's like, are you next to ideas?
Hello, Barths. All right, as we clear the room, we'll get ready to make our next presentation. I hope those IB kids left some spots in the colleges for some other people, because I don't know. And I'm sure many of them have scholarships. We didn't even get into that.
And can I add, what a great group of parents were represented here tonight.
Let's give the parents a round of applause. Thank you, Mrs. Cloud. That's right. So our next presentation, it is a night of awards and recognitions. This is one that we give to a partner who has been very helpful to us in keeping our kids healthy. I'm going to let Mr. Fine talk about that, but Borrego Health, we couldn't do it without you, so take it away, Mr. Fine.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. This evening, I'd like to recognize the exceptional service of Borrego Health and their collaborative partnership with our RUSD early childhood programs by giving the RUSD Honor Roll Award to Borrego. Borrego's mission is to provide high-quality, comprehensive, and compassionate primary health care to people in the communities they serve, regardless of their ability to pay. The families of our youngest learners have been served by Borrego Health with respect, dignity, and cultural sensitivity. Families have been provided with essential health care, immunizations, social services, free dental screenings, and other services and resources. When the partnership was formed 2 years ago, Borrego Health asked what they could do to support our early childhood programs. We responded that we were in need of a nurse to work with our students and families and asked if they could help with that need. Borrego Health very generously responded, and for the past 2 years, Borrego Health has provided funds for a dedicated health care specialist, a licensed vocational nurse, who works exclusively with our students and families participating in our early childhood programs. The partnership with Borrego Health has truly been an outstanding example of interagency support that has benefited the children and families of our district. As the board is well aware, our local control and accountability plan that is up for public hearing tonight calls out a whole idea of building community and parent partnerships, and our partnership with Borrego is between Borrego Health and RUSD is an excellent example of that type of partnership, that when we come together as a community, what we can do for our families. We have 2 representatives from Borrego Health here with us this evening. I'd like to ask them to come forward and be recognized. The first is Lenny Pepper, and the second is Heidi Galicia. And Mrs. Lockdawson, if you'd like to come down, and then if it's okay, ask Mrs. Cloud to come down. She's actually the board member that sits on the Early Childhood Policy Committee and to support the governance of this program. Trouble with numbers. Would you guys like to say something? Okay. When you want to say something? Are you okay? Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fine. And Borrego Health, that is an example of what makes Riverside so wonderful, these types of partnerships we have in place here. Next up, another recognition for 2 different teams. We've got the Martin Luther King High School boys golf, and the boys tennis teams. And I'm going to let Dr. Ermert take that over and talk to us. I think the certificates are down there too, so you have them.
Thank you, Ms. Lock-Dawson, Mr. Fine, members of the board. As we continue our recognitions tonight, we're pleased, as always, to have someone from the county office to bring us greetings and awards for not only our athletics, but our academic portion of our athletics. And I believe that we have to be the district that most often is awarded in the county because they're here so often. The representative from the county office tonight is Mr. Mark Lenore, and I'd like to bring up forward now also Daryl Hanson from the principal at Martin Luther King High School, and Tony Macy, the athletic director.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to say just a few things. Tonight specifically, we're here to recognize not only just the amazing things these athletes are doing on the athletic field, but also the amazing work that they're doing in the classroom. We'll be recognizing the boys golf, the varsity boys golf and the varsity boys tennis programs. Specifically, both of these programs had the highest GPA of any other similar sports program in the county. So it's my honor to be here this evening. I'm going to hand it over to Daryl Hanson, and we're going to recognize these students individually.
Mrs. Lock-Dawson, Mr. Fine, members of the board, thank you again for recognizing the athletic programs for their accomplishments in the classroom. We think that's extremely important. This is actually our third award this year for their academic excellence. I want to also thank Mr. Macy for his work with the athletic department. Couple things. The athletic department this year, for the first time, was ranked the #1 athletic department in the Big 8 League for its victory, so we're very proud of that. And Mr. Macy and Martin Luther King did receive the Citrus Belt Area Athletic Directors Association Sportsmanship Award this year, so we're very proud of that as well. So I know Mr. Macy, did he come up? There he is, hanging out over there. So at this time, we will begin. We'll begin with our boys golf team, and Mr. Kevin Leduc, our head coach, will come up and introduce our golfers.
Thank you. In addition to winning the academic award, they were also the league champions for the Big 8 League as well, so succeeded academically and succeeded athletically. But we have 7 guys here tonight. The first individual is Shivam Patel. The second individual is Eric Manavong. Third individual is Kevin Yu. Our fourth player is Parker Leinbach. Our fifth player, Sam Butler. Our sixth player is Dan Yu. He's also headed to New York University next year. And lastly, Ryan Brown.
So each of these teams will be getting a handsome plaque, which they could hang their team photo on. So I'd like to present this to the coach. Good job, coach. They'll also get a handsome patch for their Letterman's jacket, and I'll give these to you as well to disperse. But I failed to mention this. Their overall average GPA when it's combined was a 3.53. Pretty amazing. Good job, guys.
Thank you. And we know the lessons that golf teaches us on and off the course, too. So I'm sure each one of them has brought that into their academics as well.
So next I will introduce Coach Greg Schertzma of our tennis team.
Good evening. Thank you for this honor. I only have 5 students represented here tonight out of the 12. Guess where the other 7 are? We have exams this week and next, so they're studying. So one of the things that I've stressed all year long, and it's really throughout my career as a coach, is that very few of my athletes will ever make money as an athlete, but they're going to make money with their brains, with their academics. So my 5 players here tonight, first of all, I'll do them in alphabetical order. Alex Armijo. Vicente Capistrano. Robin Nguyen. Peter Siddiq. And Ethan Wilson. He also received the school award for the academic athlete.
Okay, Coach, I'd like to present you with this plaque. The overall GPA of the 12 boys on the team was a 3.92. Very impressive.
Mr. Hanson, you have certificates there for your boys, and they're marked, so I put them down there for you to have them. And I'll let you give them to them later. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Almost there. 8 days left? 8.5 days? I can't. The teachers will know down to the minute. Dr. Ermert, you're back up again.
Okay. Also tonight, we are pleased to recognize, and I'll have North Principal Dr. Sheffield come forward again, as well as North's Athletic Director Michael Breyer, to recognize once again the coach and the North High School boys CIF champion swim team. Also, I'd like to bring up Poly's Athletic Director Jim Vaughn, because we also, after the North team is recognized, we have 2 individual athletes that were recognized by CIF for their swimming prowess. So with that.
Good evening again. It's a proud night for John W. North. I'm here to introduce our swim team, our boys swim team. I'm proud to announce that they are CIF champs for this year, but not only CIF champs for this year, they are back-to-back CIF champs. So thanks to the hard work of the young men and their coach, I'd like to introduce Coach Perez to you all, and he will come and present the boys to you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you guys having us tonight. Before we get started, the board should know, and everyone should know, that these boys are a product of North High School, but in addition to that, they're also a product of some very hard work and also some very good parents. And I'd like to take a minute to recognize all the parents that showed up tonight for the different athletes. Thank you very much. That being said, our first athlete is Javier Bernal, and I'd like to say that he also set a school record in the 100 breaststroke as well. So, Javier. Good. Next up is Christian Moncoyo. He's one of our record holders at school in the 400 freestyle relay. Next up is by the way, Christian was part of our CIF team last year as well. A new member to our CIF team, Matthew Hamlin. A familiar face, Austin Borja, our valedictorian as well, our school valedictorian. Also a record holder in the 400 freestyle relay and an individual record holder this year in the 100 butterfly as well. Next up is Noah Schlank. Noah is also a 400 relay record holder as well. And last but not least, certainly, is our 500 freestyle CIF champion, Justin Nilad. Also a record holder in the 400 freestyle relay as well. And both Noah and Justin are members of last year's CIF team as well. So thank you very much. Have some files this way. Maybe one more. Professional. One, two, three. One, two, three.
Good evening, Mr. Vaughn.
Good evening, President Locke Dawson, board members, as well as Superintendent Fine. To do this justice, I'm going to call up Mr. Caldwell, our coach, who's been there forever and has the history of Poly swim. Just a FYI, we did finish 5th, our team for boys, and then our girls also finished 8th. As it related to the CI finals. And a lot of that has to do with the young man that you're going to be introduced to tonight. So with that being said, Mr. Colwell.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mrs. Locke Dawson, Mr. Fine, members of the board. It's with great pleasure I have the opportunity to just express what a great accomplishment that Garrett achieved this last couple of weeks in the CIF. He's being recognized for his accomplishments in the 200 freestyle and the 100 freestyle, getting first place in both of those events. He also set a Poly High School record. And as you know, Poly High School has many great swimmers and has a long history of great swimmers. And it would be awesome for me to be able to stand here and say that the record was held by Mr. Tyler Clary. However, it was set by Mr. Jason Lyons. And Mr. Clary was unable to break that record when he was at Poly. So this record was set in 2001, and so it's been a long-standing record by another great swimmer in Poly's history, and Garrett was able to beat it. And so he ranks among the very best that Poly's had in swimming, and it's with great pleasure that I have an opportunity to and he also has done very well academically. He's going, I don't know why he chose this particular school, but he's going to the University of South Dakota. Better have an indoor pool. That's right. Is that Polly's? Yeah.
Really, I just did I shake hands with the record breakers. Oh.
Those are Garrett's parents. They should be recognized as well.
Oh. We'll get you copies, we promise. Thank you very much, and you should be very, very proud. That's amazing. We expect to hear good things from South Dakota. All right, moving along. We have one more award to go tonight, one more recognition, and this is an amazing one. Not that we're saving the best for last, but this is quite huge. One of our elementary schools has been named a California Distinguished School, so I'm going to let Mr. Fine talk to us about that.
Thank you again, Mrs. Lock Dawson and members of the board. It is my pleasure tonight to recognize George Washington Elementary School. Would like to ask their principal, Kirsten Reno Frosto, and she's brought the bulk of her teaching staff, so I think they should come on up too.
Yay!
And despite what Mrs. Quinn Munson believes, that we wouldn't get to this till 10 p.m., we're actually about almost 4 hours early, Patricia. The California Distinguished School Program identifies and honors schools, and this particular year, elementary schools, it rotates between elementary and secondary each year, that have demonstrated education excellence for all students and progress in narrowing the achievement gap. Washington is one of 424 public elementary schools being honored for their commitment and their innovation. Kirsten, congratulations.
Good evening, Mrs. Lock Dawson and members of the board and Mr. Fine. Thank you very much for taking the time out of this busy school year for all of the honors. We are truly honored. And I'd really like to thank all of the members of staff, and many of them here tonight, over half of them. So we're very excited about this award. Specifically to really recognize how Washington over the past few years has been really dedicated to closing the achievement gap for all students and are making great strides in doing that, particularly through two signature practices that we chose to as standout signature practices, recognizing character counts as well as academic language, the focus of academic language, not only in our dual language immersion program, but also in our English-only instruction program. So I'd really like to give a big round of applause to the staff who've worked very hard over the vast number of years. So thank you very much.
And I'll mention while you're getting in line there that I have the privilege of being able to come out to Anaheim next week to attend with you all for you to receive your award.
Patricia, you're going to have to pull up the end.
All right. Thank you. Are you going to get your school painted soon then?
Hopefully.
With the sign on the sign on the side with the year and?
Well, we'll have to add the year.
Add the year. That's right. You already have it up there somewhere, right? Wow. Thank you very much, staff. That is an awesome, awesome, awesome award. I've worked on those applications before. They are really onerous. Thanks for making RUSD proud. We have come to the section of our, come to the section of our meeting where we take public input on items that are not on the agenda. I have not received any cards for that, so I see we Don't have any public input on anything not on the agenda. I'm going to move on to Section C, our superintendent's announcement. Mr. Fine.
Thank you, Mrs. Lock Dawson. My announcement tonight is really just limited to the season of celebration that we're in. Certainly our last board meeting and tonight, and certainly is in full gear as we complete our end-of-the-year awards programs this week and move into commencements and promotions next week. And in the spirit of that, would just like to highlight one student tonight because I think it really tells the story. This one student's success tells the story about what I think RUSD has been all about. A year and a half ago, we had a foster youth student enroll at Martin Luther King High School. When he enrolled midway through his sophomore year, by that point in time, he had been in 25 schools since kindergarten. He lives approximately 5 miles away from MLK, so he takes the city bus and walks, and when he misses the city bus, he walks the entire way. He played varsity football for the Wolves, and he's going to play football for the RCC Tigers. He was born in London. He is not a U.S. citizen. His mom was Jamaican. His dad was in the service, but because he's not a U.S. citizen, he makes financial aid difficult. Again, this is a foster student. He's moved around so many times that he was never in one place for enough time for a teacher or the school to even recognize some special needs that he had. But the staff at King, as would be replicated at any one of our high schools, but the staff at King took this young man under their wings and in just a very short period of time recognized that need. He simply needed some accommodation on some testing. With respect to the California High School exam, just needed a little longer time and the use of a computer, and his abilities, his academic abilities, clearly were at that point then demonstrated that he'd been held from not having that time and being held back in the past. So we celebrate Dwayne Wallace. He, our Riverside Youth Council recognized him as one of the 25 remarkable kids, students in Riverside recently. But Dwayne is just one of thousands of kids that we will celebrate this week and next week. And certainly a testament to the staff at MLK and to our teachers and counselors and other support staff all around the district. And I think with that, Mrs. Lock Dawson, I'm not sure if Mrs. Cloud, we've had an instructional subcommittee. It was a single topic. I'm not sure if she would like to report on it or not. Otherwise, that's my report for tonight.
Mrs. Cloud? Is it okay? Or Mr. Lee, either one of you? No. Thank you, Mr. Fine. We are on to our next section, the district employee group reports. My understanding is Mr. Rudd is not able to be here tonight. He's ill, so we are going to skip that report and move on to item D2. This is our Riverside Council PTA presentation by Ms. Sandy Page. Is Sandy here? No. Okay. Pardon me? She may be outside. We can move on to the next agenda item if somebody would like to go out and see if Ms. Page is outside. If she's not, well, when she comes back in, if she's here, we can take her report. If not, we will move on to our consent calendar. Nope, we don't see her. Okay. We did have a wonderful, I will say this, we did have a wonderful Volunteer of the Year celebration, which PTA was involved in. We also had our PTA luncheon, which was wonderful. So I know Sandy has been really instrumental in pulling all those things together, and with staff as well, Jackie Paul and others. So appreciate that. We are moving on to our consent section of our agenda. These are routine items that we can take in a block unless somebody would like to pull anything out. Mr. Hunt?
I just have a question on E3, but otherwise I would move approval, which is an answer to E3. Just wanted to.
Okay. So would you move approval with your question unanswered, or would you want an answer now?
I just want to, can I ask Dr. Lewis, can you?
Dr. Lewis, can you come forward?
Do you want a second?
Yeah. Sure. Ms. Cloud, were you seconding?
I would.
Thank you, Ms. Cloud.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. We'll hear from Dr. Lewis, and then we'll vote.
Hi. Dr. Lewis, just wanted to, this is quite some time ago we approved these restroom renovations. Is that?
Actually, it's inaccurately recorded as restroom renovations. What this is a follow-up project at Poly after the Athletic Facilities Master Plan project. So it's a variety of things, mostly exterior landscaping work. If you notice, there's a strip of landscaping on Central, basically from the tennis courts easterly. That's one example of the projects that are going to be completed. We call it a pickup project because it's coming back after the major project to get the smaller issues accomplished.
That was my exterior restroom. I was a little concerned about that, but thank you. And all right, then.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Thank you, Mr. Hunt.
And also, if I would just like to mention that if you turn to page 95, tonight, as would be our custom, there are some people that are retiring, and that would include Ramona Bryson after 26 years, almost 27, and Margaret Rush, 35 years, over at Shamawa, and also Brenda Wright, 13 years, and Edwin Sherwood after 7 years. But those first two are exceptional.
Thank you.
And also, if we're recognizing retirees, that would be Patty Popovich, who's the principal at Fremont Elementary.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you for your years of service, Patty, who I don't see her out there, but.
All right. So we have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Please vote. That item carries. Thank you. Consent is approved. Now we're moving on to our public hearing portion of our agenda. First up is our budget, I believe. I saw, is Ms. Meekins here to talk about that? This is a regular report at one of our regular intervals. Ms. Meekins, thank you.
Mrs. Lock-Dawson, Mr. Fine, and members of the board. This report is a little bit different than how we have done it before. It is a public hearing required by Ed Code, and we do this before you consider the adoption of our 2014-15 all funds budget, which is scheduled for June 17th. We normally do the public hearing and the adoption of the budget at one meeting, and because of the new requirements for the Local Control Funding Formula, LCFF, and the Local Control and Accountability Plan, LCAP, the public hearings are now, the budget is now subsequent to the date that the public hearings are done on. So we have the new regulations, and it also has changed a little bit on how we are doing our process. So the all funds budget, a draft of it, was made available for the public inspection on May 28th, and it has been posted online. But the draft we are continuing to update as we get new information, just like we got information from the State Department of Finance, which revised our COLA percentages and revised our GAP percentages for the LCFF funding. So the next step after tonight's public meeting will be to take the final draft of the budget to the Finance Committee, which I believe is June 10th, and we will return on June 17th to the board with the all funds budget and a presentation for your consideration.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Meekins? No? Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Did we receive any public comment on it?
I haven't. Have we?
You're going to open a hearing or have a...
Yeah.
We are right now.
We're going to open a public hearing.
We are in a hearing now.
Okay, we've opened. I'm sorry, I missed that. But did we receive any public comment on the internet or by written?
No, those comments I believe would be cards tonight.
Oh, cards tonight. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Which I haven't received any. So...
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Meekins, and thank you for your service and always doing such a fabulous job. We appreciate it. All right, so do we need to close our public hearing now on that? Yeah, so does somebody want to make a motion to, Tom?
Thank you. I move to close the public hearing.
I think you can just close it.
Okay, all right. All right, well, I'm going to get that as a second, and we're just going to close the public hearing. Okay, so, and unanimous approval of that. All right, moving on to the next public hearing item. This is on our local control and accountability plan. Tonight is the night we hear sort of the culmination of everything, all that's been brought to us by the 1,600 data points and the groups and the meetings and the board and everything else. And Mr. Fine is going to speak to this, and we do have some public comment, but we will receive a report from Mr. Fine initially, and then we'll move on to comments. Mr. Fine?
Thank you. Good evening again, Mrs. Lock-Dawson and members of the board. This is obviously a multi-step process, and as Mrs. Meekins has indicated, tonight is the public hearing. You'll actually consider the final local control and accountability plan at your meeting on the 17th, Tuesday the 17th. But under the new regulations, we must separate the dates of the public hearing and the actual adoption, not only of the LCAP, but as Mrs. Meekins just indicated, of the budget, which just makes the process new for each of us. Last Wednesday, you gathered in the last of what has been many study sessions to review the local control and accountability plan. And from that discussion, what is before you tonight includes just a couple minor changes, and they are at your place setting. Again, all of the yellow highlights were up through last week, and the blue highlights would be any additional changes, and I'm going to point those out to you. I meant to, on another copy, I had meant the pages back, but as I walked up here, I grabbed a new copy. So the first of those changes is on page 18, and this is specifically in relationship to sequenced career pathways. We talked at some length last Wednesday about the background on why the draft LCAP included only a couple new sequence pathways, and that they would begin planning in year 2 for implementation in year 3. And at the board's suggestion, we provided some context and some background relative to this item because we had applied for 2 different state grants that would actually allow us to accelerate the implementation of pathways and to have almost 8 additional pathways or complete some existing pathways by adding just 1 or 2 classes. As we shared last Wednesday, we were pending at that point notification from the State Department on whether we received either of those grants, and late Thursday we received word that we did not receive that grant, either of those grants. In fact, no districts in Riverside County received the Career Pathway Trust grants, and even the one consortium in western San Bernardino County that we thought had the best, probably one of the best chances in the state, did not receive an award. And so what we've done here is backed up, and we've not altered any of the information that was in the LCAP from last Wednesday. We simply accelerated it by moving actions from year 2 and year 3 up to year 1. So it still only speaks to 2 additional career pathways, but instead of waiting till year 2 and year 3 to put those in place, we would begin the planning for all of those next year with implementation in year 2. The Senate's budget proposal does include another $250 million for this coming year for another round of grant applications. I'm going to guess that doesn't meet with the governor's approval and may not be part of the final budget deal. But there is certainly a chance, and so we potentially in the next year will get another bite at the apple with respect to those grants. I think key in our look at those grants, and we will get feedback from the raters, the readers, and the ratings on our grants. One of the keys that I think we have observed ourselves is we have a lot of very positive elements in our grant, but we are new at this. We don't have the existing industry partnerships built in such a strong sense as what we can see, for example, in San Bernardino, which is one of the reasons we thought they would be very successful at this. So actually a little bit of time gives us an opportunity in this next year to build those partnerships and resubmit with the partnerships. We identified a number of partners in our grant application. Actually, multiple partners were identified, but we were creating the partnership through the grant process. It wasn't pre-existing. And so that's certainly an area that we can strengthen, and with a little bit more time should be able to pull that off. So page 18 and the very top of 19 have those, in essence, timing revisions to them, but not really content revisions.
Mr. Fine, we have a couple questions, I think, regarding this item. Mr. Lee?
Thank you, President Loch Dawson. So in regards to, you said that we're not changing anything, we're just accelerating the pathways? Because originally didn't we have two, we identified two that we were going to create by year 3, and now it looks like there's 4 in year...
Well, so Mr. Lee, you're correct. In the 3-year plan, we saw 2 being created by year 3, but there were additional in our minds coming after that. We accelerated the entire piece, including what's off on the right side here that's not printed. So excellent observation and point. We didn't really change our approach to anything other than the timing, where we brought everything forward to do the planning in year 1 and implement in year 2.
So we're going to plan basically, we'll plan all along, but plan in year 1 for 2, plan in year 2, implement those 2, plan in year 2 for 2 more, and implement in year 3.
That's
so we'll
correct.
have 4 by year 3.
That's would be the goal.
Okay.
And again, some of these may be brand new sequence pathways, and some of these may be several existing courses that exist today, but they've got some gaps in the course sequence, and by filling in those gaps, we'll have a complete sequence. So it's a mix of the 2 approaches.
And the funding that's identified, is that for materials, for resources? It doesn't seem like that would be enough to staff new pathways.
It's not in year 1. The bulk of the funding in year 1 is to add a coordinator to do that planning and to implement it. The bulk of the funding for any of these pathways by way of teaching staff comes from existing allocations of staffing. Instead of teaching XYZ class, they would be teaching a pathway class.
Thank you.
Mr. Fine, we have another couple questions, please. Mr. Hunt?
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Fine, the coordinator, not on staff yet, what are we looking for there, and where would this person be housed? You know, always closer to the superintendent's office is a good answer for priority, but just I'd like to understand that a little more.
So we're looking for somebody with a background in career technical education. We actually have a teacher on staff that I'm sure would be an applicant for this job, as I suspect some others will be too, especially in the changes that are going in across the state. It will be probably a competitive recruitment, because those 15 or so consortiums that were funded are also going to be looking for some of the same talent base, and so we're going to need to compete with those. This would be a position that works within our secondary education department. We would see, in the past, we've had a instructional services specialist for career technical ed. That was one of our early budget cuts 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and so we eliminated the position. This would, in essence, be bringing back that role, and they reported to the Director of Secondary Education, just as any other secondary course of study expert
The
would
director
do.
or the assistant superintendent?
The director.
The director. And I would like the staff to look at Coachella's model, and the young lady that runs that. If you, Mike, you know Tom Donahue.
Yes.
He brought a presentation a few years back before Raincross that was just astounding what they're doing out there in Coachella with this sort of matching of businesses, internships, all of that. I think it's a great model, and I should have said it before, but I really would like to see if our folks could look at that and just tell the board a little bit more about it. It's pretty astounding. But thank you for your work.
Thank you. One more. Mrs. Cloud.
Just briefly, Mr. Fine, as you know, in our conversation, the state the California Teacher Credentialing Commission is changing requirements for teachers who would be able to teach, career technical education classes. So does that put a crimp? I would imagine that's going to limit that, but, I'm glad we're plowing ahead kind of, that ground and moving ahead in that, but I'm sure we're mindful of the kinds of courses that even recently we just approved.
So, Mrs. Cloud, you're correct. The California Commission on Teacher Credentialing seems to be moving in the opposite direction that everybody else in California is moving. While the state's investing hundreds of millions of dollars in new pathways, CTC is beginning now to require a different experience qualification for teachers in these areas. An example of that would be a new requirement for 3 years of experience in the subject matter for teachers that are teaching in what we know of as CTE type classes. 2 of those years we won't have any trouble meeting. If they're, number one, if they're an experienced teacher, that will count for 1 of the years. Number 2 is specific training and units of study will count for units within a course of study, I should say, would count towards the 2nd. The 3rd is going to be the hurdle because it requires industry experience. And an experienced teacher that came up through the classroom isn't going to have that industry experience per se. They're going to know their subject matter very well, but they won't have that year. So it's like so many things. When one door closes, though, another door opens. And here's the uniqueness of right now where CTC is. And I think this will change because I think they're going to realize they've left a loophole out there. But they are only imposing those new standards on state-funded CTC programs. If they are locally funded out of our LCAP, that new standard doesn't apply.
Even if the money comes originally from the state?
So ROP state-funded, secondary partnerships like we have in place today, the new Career Technical Trust Fund, and I'm missing one. There's a 4th state-funded program in this arena. Those are where those new requirements apply, at least today. I think they will catch on real quick, that most of us can work outside of that and put it in our LCAP and have it come out of our general fund and not have that. So I expect they'll catch up to that. But as written today, if we fund it locally from our own resources, those new standards don't appear to apply.
Well, the interesting thing probably for the audience to know, too, that industry people can't just come in and teach those courses either because they need a teaching credential. So, we get squeezed from both sides.
That's right.
So, thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
The next change in response to your comments last Wednesday's on page 21 where we specifically called out core knowledge as opposed to leaving it in the general programs of choice category. And on page 22, we did talk about this on Wednesday night, but it wasn't on the sheet. We had learned about it late in the discussion and brought it to you verbally. But that would be to create the pipeline to go into the high school project Lead the Way by beginning a pipeline program, pathway program at the middle school for a relatively small amount of funding. That's the next page. I'm sorry, page 22. And those are the changes and from the last version of this, other than a couple typos that we discovered as we were reviewing it with you last Wednesday. And so I will, unless there's additional questions, I will sit down and leave it to the hearing.
All right, Mrs. Cloud has a question for you.
I actually have a thank you for listening to us the other night and adding on page 21 and 22 some of the special programs that we talked about that weren't included before with the funding cycle, like the Core Knowledge at Bryant, but not just the Core Knowledge program at Bryant and Adams. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for incorporating that because I heard about it the next day, as you know.
Yeah.
So thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we're done? Okay.
commend
Sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Hunt. Say what you'd like to say.
It's worth commenting and giving Mr. Fine the leadership credit that there was a lot of people, some in this room, some who aren't. I don't see Gina, but and then 1,600 good Riversiders who came up with an excellent document. I'm looking forward to seeing this be implemented over the next few years and really improving our USD. It's one of the most important things in the short 6 years that I've been on the board that we've been able to do. So I compliment and thank Mr. Fine for his leadership on this. It's really a state example.
A lot of people put in a lot of hours, staff and Mr. Fine and the public. I know folks who are interested in this plan want to see us succeed. So I appreciate that. I do have a couple of comments that I'd like to call on folks now. Remember, your presentation is limited to 3 minutes, please, so we can get through everybody's comments so we can hear them. Maria Rojas, please. Good evening, Maria.
Good evening, President Locke Dawson, Mr. Fine, and members of the board. My name is Maria Rojas. I am a member of Our Lady of Guadalupe Shrine here in Riverside, and I am a parent leader with ICUC. I am here today with fellow ICUC leaders to commend the district on the thorough job it has done in developing the first-year LCAP, and to share some of our recommendations in moving forward with the LCAP, in particular, parent and community engagement. I will be presenting this evening with Maria Carvajal, another ICUC leader. ICUC is a faith-based community organizing effort that represents over 60,000 families throughout the Inland Empire, approximately 8,000 which reside within the boundaries of Riverside Unified School District. We are part of the PICO National Network and of PICO, California, the largest grassroots organizing effort in the state. In November 2012, ICUC turned out 10,000 new and frequent and new voters to pass Proposition 30, which without which LCFF funding would now not be a reality. We have approached the LCAP process as an opportunity to create authentic partnership between the community and the district, and to have the voice of the community brought forth and weighed like never before. In a recent report by EdSource, the key finding was that student performance improves dramatically when parents are involved in their child's education. This was found particularly true for English learners and low-income students, 2 of the 3 primary targets of LCFF. The report also found positive correlations between parent involvement and school climate, as well as teacher satisfaction. Research also shows that the strongest and most consistent predictors of parent involvement at school and at home are the specific school programs and teacher practices that encourage parent involvement at school and guide parents to how to help their children at home. RUSD's community input sessions included 40% parent participation. This demonstrates that Riverside parents are ready, willing, and able to actively engage in the education of their children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maria Carvajal.
Buenas tardes, Presidenta Lactaxon, señor Fine y demás miembros de la mesa. Mi nombre es María Carvajal y soy líder de ICUC. Con la nueva creación de la nueva prioridad de participación de padres y la comunidad en LCAP, creemos que Riverside tiene la oportunidad este año para crear un plan para la participación de los padres que profundizarán las relaciones entre el hogar y las escuelas. Fortalecer la capacidad de los padres para mantener a sus hijos y participar. Padres ser líderes en sus escuelas y socios en la mejora de la educación para todos los estudiantes.
Good evening, President Locke Dawson, Mr. Fine, and members of the board. My name is Maria Carvajal, and I too am a leader with ICUC. Excuse me. With the new creation of the new priority of participation of parents in the community in LCAP, we believe that Riverside has the opportunity this year to create a plan for the parent participation and then deepen the relationship between the home and school, and then to strengthen the ability of parents to be able to support their children and participate as parents in being leaders in their schools and being then partners in the betterment, in the improvement of the education for all students.
Aplaudimos a los cambios que se han hecho hasta el momento a la sección de participación de padres y la comunidad en el proyecto de LCAP. Estos cambios reflejan el compromiso del distrito para crear una asociación auténtica con los padres y la comunidad para asegurar que este compromiso continúe. Nos gustaría proponer a ustedes las siguientes recomendaciones.
We applaud the changes that have been made up to now to the section of the parent participation in the community in the LCAP plan. These changes reflect the commitment of RUSD to create a true an authentic association or partnership with parents and the community, and to ensure that this commitment continues, we would like to propose to you the following recommendations.
En primer lugar, en cuanto a la sección 2, bajo los padres y la comunidad, ICUC recomienda que el distrito involucre a la comunidad en el proceso de contrataciones del coordinador de participación de padres y comunidad, incluida la asistencia en la redacción de la descripción del trabajo y participación en el proceso de la entrevista. Esto se asegurará de que este individuo representa las necesidades de la comunidad como enlace del distrito y efectivamente mejorar la coordinación de los servicios de la comunidad y de los padres.
In the first place, in relation to Action 2 under Parents and Community, ICUC recommends that the districts involve the community in the process of hiring the coordination for parent participation, parent engagement, and community, including in the assistance of the writing of the job description and participation in the interview process. This would ensure that this individual will represent the community's needs as a link to the district and effectively improve the coordination of services for the community and parents.
En segundo lugar, en relación con la sección 3, se recomienda que el segundo año el distrito ofrece capacitaciones de capacidad a los padres utilizando el modelo de padre a padre en Santana. Este es un modelo que se ha involucrado a más de 50,000 padres en el Distrito Escolar Unificado de Santana sobre cómo apoyar y mejorar a sus hijos en la escuela.
Secondly, in relation to Action 3, it is recommended that for the second year, the district offer workshops for parents using the model of parent to parent from Santa Ana. This is a model in which has involved more than 50,000 parents in the in the Santa Ana Unified School District, and it is about supporting parents. It is in relation to how parents can then support their children in school.
En tercer lugar, con respecto a la sección 6, durante más de 2 años, el Comité de Educación de ICUC ha propuesto un centro de alcance similar a lo que se ve en el proyecto de LCAP. Se han investigado a fondo centros similares en Santana. Nos gustaría trabajar con el distrito en el desarrollo del centro de Riverside.
Thirdly, in relation to Action 6, during more than 2 years, the Committee of Education of ICUC has proposed an outreach center similar to the one that is included in LCAP, and it has deeply investigated similar centers in Santa Ana. We would like to work with the district in the development of the Riverside Center.
Y por último, se recomienda que un comité de contabilidad de LCAP se establecerá que sea compuesto de padres, estudiantes y miembros de la comunidad para supervisar la aplicación de LCAP.
And lastly, it is recommended that the accountability committee for LCAP be established and that it be composed of parents, students, and members of the community to supervise the LCAP application.
Pedimos que el distrito considere seriamente estas recomendaciones en avanzar en LCAP. Los padres y la comunidad son fundamentales para el éxito de nuestros estudiantes. Gracias.
We ask that the district seriously consider these recommendations in the advancement as the LCAP proceeds. The parents and the community are fundamental for our students' success. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carvajal. Morris Mendoza. And thank you for the translation. Appreciate it.
Good evening, President, Superintendent, members of the board. My name is Morris Mendoza, and I'm of the community of Casablanca. Let me first thank you for all the work you do and for our students and their parents and for this report which you had us take part in. I now wish to express my thoughts on this draft. Three thoughts. While you stress a plan would be done to help all students in the Riverside Unified School District to be successful, I would have liked to see an action item to include how you would outreach the children and parents of those that are bused. The idea of school choice is great, but it does not always work for all. Next, in the area of curriculum and instruction, I do believe that you, the district, have been moving forward in this area for college, and that's greatly appreciated, especially when that was one of our concerns of the past. My one concern is another concern that we didn't think about, but now is for those students who are more interested in hands-on training, auto shop, wood shop, welding, etc. I mention this because of my grandson that I have was not as academic as his brother, yet he seems to do well with hands-on skills. Also for my retired friends who are grateful for the schooling they received in this district in the past and held on to jobs that they were able to get because of their training here. They're now retired, so this goes back to really old school back in the 60s. The last thought is in the area of employment. The cost to implement or make the plan work is going to pay salaries, high-paying salaries. Is there no room to pay for student interns, parent supervisors? In other words, spreading the wealth around. To me, it's a social justice issue economically. It's becoming harder to become a teacher. Taxpayers are being taxed to the limit, and people and the poor and what's left of the middle class are stuck. Please also remember diversity in your hiring. Thank you.
Thank you. As always, Mr. Mendoza, well spoken. Ashley Lopez, please come forward. Thank you, Ms. Lopez, and remember you are limited to 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Ashley Lopez, and I'm a parent of a special education student.
I read a lot on the LCAP and the plan for the Common Core and how the Common Core is emphasized and going to be rolled out. And I would like to see...
Can you lean into the microphone? Thanks.
I would like to see a goal for the severely handicapped classes in RUSD and the changes we will see with the new Common Core standards. What would it look like in a 3-year plan? Fall is right around the corner, and I'm eager to learn about how the changes are going to affect my student.
Okay.
I also think another area of need to be addressed in the LCAP is there's a lot of how extracurricular activities and things that general ed can be involved in and how special ed can be involved in their schools.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lopez. Aurora Sanchez. Good evening, Ms. Sanchez.
Good evening. I'll be brief since I have a minute and a half. I think the superintendent fine for presenting the LCAP plan to us in the past meetings. I represent the special needs community, and I have my child there sitting. I'd like for the board to have an open communication with us and, dialogue and see our concerns along with the conjunction of our SELPA and hear how our plans for the community. In the past meeting, someone mentioned about pathways, and it's only a 4-year program for our students who are finishing high school. I thought that maybe a consideration would be for special needs students, instead of 4-year program, maybe a 6-year program. I know the funding needs to be appropriate, but maybe if we ask the community to do some fundraising for these students, we want functional students or individuals for our community, and our community is only growing, and my worry is that when tomorrow comes, there won't be enough money to sustain all the people coming out.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take your comments to heart. Thank you. That is all the public comments I've received on this agenda item. Are there any board member questions? Mr. Hunt.
I would just ask that the staff would take the different and very eloquent presentations made tonight and report back to the board at our next meeting. Just whether these are included, whether they're not included, if they could be, what would be the barriers. I'm very interested in Ms. Carvajal's, I think we do have an LCAP accountability plan, right? We have to have, that's by law. And also to find a little bit more about the one-to-one program that Santa Ana has set up. But all of them, and I think very important, Ms. Sanchez was just saying, is our special needs kids. And I've talked to Mr. Fine earlier about my concerns about the homeless kids, too, just making sure we have enough coverage in Mr. Walker's shop for that. But thank you very much.
Thanks. I will say I do know a little bit about the parent-to-parent program, and I would love to have that shared with the rest of the board, too, because it's not just Santa Ana, other places have it, too. So I think Mr. Fine is familiar with it as well. So perhaps, Mr. Fine, you can bring something forward to share with the board on how that's working and how effective it is. Also, it's a good way to reach folks that may not otherwise get that information unless another parent tells them. So, Mr. Hunt?
Though I want to see a report come back, and I want to give Mr. Fine time, is there any, I'm just asking, is there any immediate comments that he'd like to add, or Ms. Aries, I see, is here in the audience, about the different comments that were presented?
Okay. Mr. Fine?
I certainly can. With respect to the last comment on the Padre, we've looked at that actually for a number of years. We've kind of gone back and forth with that. So that's certainly something that we can talk about. What's in the LCAP as far as building the community partnership, community and parent partnership, is about building a plan to do that initially and then implementing that plan. So very open to the idea of a joint effort in building that plan. That was the idea here, and would expect that there are a number of programs that would go into that, including the ones cited, and the group working on that then could could go and look at the Santa Ana model, at the San Bernardino model, at any number of models. So we kind of took the same approach with that as we did with the counseling. We know there's a deeper and more full dialogue that needs to happen. And so spend a little time with that dialogue, go look at some things, and don't spend forever at it. Just get going with it, and then come back and replicate whatever we like and move forward with it. And that's really what's called out here. I think Mrs. Sanchez's idea about pathways to serve special needs kids that goes on in cooperation with our post-graduation or what we know of as Project Team, and have Project Team then be able to take some students from a four-year pathway program and continue it, is an excellent idea of how we can merge some things. We've got many of the pieces in place to do that. It would just be a matter of focusing. We have many industry partnerships already in place with regard to Project Team. And so that kind of concept is, in my mind, is actually really fits nicely and something that we can explore and do. And because we're not, here again is the positive side of not getting the state grant. It's our own local. We almost can do anything we want to do at this point if we're going to craft it locally and pay for it with local money. And so looking for some things that specifically provide opportunities within the pathways for special needs kids is an opportunity that we have and we can do. A great suggestion. Touching on, and I think this is what I understood, Maria to speak to at the very end of her comments was this idea of an accountability, for lack of a better term, committee being in place and continuing. And as Mrs. Lockdawson and I were talking, in many respects, it looks like our Measure B accountability committee. We already have the structure in place with our LCAP steering committee. We committed to that group, although they're actually done with their meetings, to come together again to help us evaluate the process. Taking that committee and adding some charges to it, if you will, and it's from a charter perspective, to do some oversight that I think is really what was being alluded to, is just a natural fit and easy to do in my mind. It already is a great cross-section of our stakeholders and diversity. We have some folks that haven't participated in it that were appointed. Obviously would reopen those up, for new participants in the process, but in specifically adding students to that process. We've received a lot of accolades for including students in the LCAP process, but they weren't on the steering committee per se. And so adjusting the charge a little bit with respect to future accountability and adding students to it is another simple thing to do and great suggestion. I think several of the other things are actually in the plan itself, maybe some clarity, and we'll go back and look at that. Specifically, Maria's comments about some workshops in year 3. They are all envisioned in there. We'll go back and make sure that there's clarity that those are called out.
Mr. Hunt, did you have another comment?
I'm asking you, or maybe Mrs. Sanchez can help clarify for me, but Mrs. Sanchez talked about, and the whole +2 thing we worked on. What extracurricular activities for our special needs kids, special ed kids? I know we do a lot for them, proms and all, but is there opportunities for them to be? Help me understand that better, and if it's okay with you, if she wants to clarify, that's fine too. But I'd like to understand that better, if I could.
So I think Daryl, where's Daryl? There's Daryl. So I can speak to this at King because I know it firsthand from actually seeing it at King and conversations Daryl and I've had, and I think the same will be true at several of our other high schools. We have special needs kids on our cheerleading squads, on our pep squads, on some athletic teams. Obviously, there's a physical ability piece there that we need to be sensitive to. We've got special ed kids that are team managers and fully involved in athletic teams. So I've seen those at any number of our schools. I'm familiar with a couple of the students at King, which is why I call them as an example. But I know each of our high schools have made those opportunities available. Going beyond those, certainly clubs, which are part of the School Plus 2 program that's envisioned, and we can look at any number of things. What's in the plan is to provide a full base program of activities, and that would certainly include programs for our special needs students.
Thank you, Mr. Fine. And Ms. Sanchez, we have your information here, so we can get additional information from you regarding the types of programs you had envisioned and perhaps work with us. I know you are involved in our parent committee, correct, already? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And I just have to say, I will say about our LCAP, just speaking from the heart, this is something that your board and your staff really genuinely, we really wanted the community to tell us what to do. It really was that way. I mean, that's not I'm not feeding anybody a line. It's how we approach this. We could have easily done a lot of things that made it look like we were listening to people and then did our own thing. But we knew that the strength of this plan was going to come from your input. And I really commend Mr. Fine and his staff for really carrying that through and sometimes not always doing what was popular, but doing the right thing. So we really appreciate that. So thank you, Mr. Fine. And thank you, members of the public and all of our staff that have helped as well. So thanks. All right. I don't have any more comment cards, so I guess we can consider the public hearing closed now, unless you want to make a motion, Mrs. Clem. I'm just kidding. Okay. Thank you all for coming tonight regarding that. We're moving on to our action item of our calendar. We've got a revision of our report card. So we have our report card committee. Brad Shear and Stephen. See, I remember it. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Brad and Stephen.
Okay.
Please give us just a second and let it quiet down just a minute. So we want to make sure we get every word. Okay, why don't you guys go ahead. Thanks.
Okay. So President Lockdawson and Mr. Fine and members of the board, we're bringing to you a request for approval of the report card. So revisions made to that report card, and I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Dunlap, who has actually done yeoman's work on this, as he has carried this in the changeover from directors and him taking this on. He's really done a lot of work on this. So I'm going to turn it over to him. He's going to tell you about those changes that were made since our last board meeting.
Okay, good evening. Again, my name is Steve Dunlap. I'm an instructional services specialist for the elementary education department. As you know, the report cards did come before the board on May 5th, and that action item was tabled to address some concerns that were brought up before the board concerning language. We have worked very hard in the last month to go ahead and address those concerns, and here's some of the action steps we've taken since May 5th. Actually, the day after the board meeting, Mrs. Alavi and I sat down to talk about some of the language concerns that were on the report card. We sat and went through each of the report cards, highlighted some areas that needed some better language, came up with some different language, and then also Mrs. Alavi proposed a one-page informational sheet to be placed on, attached to the report card. And you can see in the packets in front of you, you do have this presentation as well as the revised report cards that Mrs. Alavi and I worked on and then took to the report card committee. The changes are highlighted in yellow, and you can also see on the back of that page of each of the report cards is that one-page informational sheet. And I will let Mrs. Alavi speak to that if she'd like to in a moment. But basically, it's just a communication tool with parents to give some, just a welcoming message and also provide some resources that are available to parents if they want further information about the report card. We then took These recommendations that Mrs. Allaby and I sat down and discussed to the Elementary Report Card Committee on May 15th. Met with that committee. They looked over those changes. They looked at the one-page informational sheet. They did tweak some of the language on that, and then went ahead and approved that to go before the Board Communications Subcommittee, which met on the 16th, the day after that meeting. And in attendance there was President Locke Dawson and Mrs. Allaby. We had a very fruitful conversation about the report cards, the one-page informational sheet, and they approved it to go ahead and come before the full board this evening. In the meantime, between the May 5th board meeting and actually last week, we did ask our school sites, our elementary school sites, to engage their parent group meetings that were happening in the month of May. We thought that would be the easiest way to get some feedback from the sites concerning the revisions to the report card, as well as that one-page informational sheet. A majority of the response we got back was very positive. Saw that the informational sheet was appropriate, that the language changes were something that were more parent-friendly, and I think addressed a lot of the concerns that the board had on May 5th. So we are, again, requesting approval by the board of the report cards in their draft 13 form that you see before you, with that one-page informational sheet on the back. As well as requesting approval just to continue to develop some more communication tools with the various stakeholders we have to engage, not only parents but also our teachers and our sites, to give them all the resources they need to interpret the new report card and be able to implement it in the 14-15 school year. So with that, I will answer any questions.
We do have a couple questions.
Okay, great.
Mrs. Allaby.
Well, it's not exactly a question, because I do understand everything he said. We were right there, and I applaud all his efforts and everyone's efforts, and the committee's efforts as well. So I just want to say that, and reiterate again, that the report card is the major communication piece that takes the information, the academic information about this child's progress, and puts it in a form that's palatable so that parents of all kinds can understand it. And we feel that, at least I feel that the changes that were made, and with the additional changes by the committee, really do address this. And then this is the page, just so everybody knows. The way we envisioned this, I spoke to John Schreck about this, and these can be blanks. So each school is given a stack of these, and then they run them through and print the report card on the back of them. So that can be done fairly easily and without much cost. And I think it will help a lot, because with this information sheet on one side, it'll also give them a link to where they can even get further information if the terms are still confusing. So not only have we improved the terms, we've also given them more information about where to go to even get more information. So I think that that's something we have done that's really helpful. You might even notice that they've even added a little smart code here on the bottom, which if they have a smart code thing, they can just, it'll take them right to the glossary, which is pretty cool. That was beyond my scope. That was John Schreck's idea. But I just want to applaud you for all the work you've done. It was really very fast. I know we asked you to do a lot in a very short time, and I think it's a better product. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mrs. Cloud?
Well, I had some suggestions to Mrs. Allaby, which I know she didn't agree with, but some of these terms that we're using, we do have, academic words we could put in parentheses, because that is how Common Core and a lot of educational, like conventions or whatever, language structure, parentheses, conventions, which I think would be helpful. But I know she doesn't agree with me, and I'm not going to die on that hill. But I think they are perfectly legitimate words to define and help with our parents. And the other thing I was thinking, I like this, but this isn't what I envisioned when I thought that we would do a glossary of terms. I thought there would actually be a glossary of terms on the piece of paper, because when I look at this, I went and looked at rusdlink.org, apparently, and it's not there yet.
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
So I have no idea what terms and how you're going to put there. And I will tell you, as a parent, that's one extra step that a lot of parents can't or won't take. I thought the terms were going to be on here. So, you know.
What was the decision behind that? Because there was a discussion about that. Why did we decide not to have, because there were too many?
If I can address that, I think one of the reasons that we didn't necessarily want to put it on a printed page at this point, one was that we were waiting for the content of the report cards to be approved by the board before we moved ahead with the glossary itself. But the nice part about it being something that's web-based is that we are able in the future to update it as needed. So if something comes up in the future where there are some confusions that we didn't initially think were going to be a problem, we can add that as well. We can also have, we're planning to have print versions available at the school site so that if parents aren't able to access it via the website, they can also get a paper copy as well.
How long of an explanation were you envisioning? You know, like a page of explanation, or
so
what?
I'm not seeing it to be probably not much more than a page. But again, we haven't gone into the detail of looking at each one of those terms. But we wanted to have the ability to expand it in the future, and I think that was the reason with going the web-based.
I understand that, but you do understand most of our kids are more informational technology oriented than most of the parents are, and I just want to make sure that whatever we do, we don't make it more complicated for parents. And I think sending them to a website in some cases is making it more complicated. So,
Mr. Lee?
Mr. Dunlap, you're going to hate me, but I do not like this at all. I mean, I think that's it's almost talking down to parents. I mean, the language that we're using. I mean, I like the changes that are reflected on the report card, but the fact that this flyer is on the back, I think it almost devalues the report card and the importance of it. And I agree with Mrs. Cloud that parents are not going to take that next step to read this, then go on the website and look up terms and then reference back to the report card. It's not going to happen. And honestly, if I got this in the mail and I opened it this way, I would throw it away. I wouldn't look at the other side.
Mrs. Alvey?
Yeah, I just want to explain the thinking on this. The idea is that this would be only the first year. You could change this blank to be anything you wanted to in future years. This isn't the way it exists forever. It's just that the first time that the report cards come out, it may be that they don't understand it. It looks new and it looks different. And so this addresses that newness and that differentness. But then you could change it. You could write anything you wanted to. You could include information on tutoring. You could include information on ways that they could get extracurricular information. So, I mean, I'm just saying that the concept of having this on the back of a report card as an additional communication piece is a good idea. I'm sorry if you think it's speaking down. I don't think it's speaking down. I think it's being very informative. We want you to have a clear picture of your child's academic progress. I don't think that's speaking down to people. I think that's saying we hope that these are clear changes and if you have any questions at all, this is the way to do it. But if this is not what you envision, we could put the glossary of terms on the back. I still think, though, that there should be some kind of explanation to parents what that glossary then means. Well, you know, you may notice that this is an important new report card with the terms have changed. Otherwise, they're going to say, well, what is this? What is this? So I think this is just an explanatory sheet that was supposed to go out for the first report card to give people an idea of why the changes were made.
Okay, we have a couple more comments. Mr. Hunt?
I suggest you might look at 8 by 17, because I think you can fit everybody in there. As an Air Force kid, I went to several different schools, and I remember going to Moreno Valley Elementary because they moved us off of the base for a while, and they had for some reason they had a flip-flop where a 1 was good but a 5 wasn't as good, you know, that sort of thing. And God, I wish I'd had a glossary that evening when I got home, because Dad was pretty upset at me, and I think he wouldn't have gone to the internet he would have, he's worked all day and tough job. So do find a way. We can afford this size. You can fit in with Mrs. Alavi's messages and the report card and a glossary and fold it nicely, and it will be something that, as my parents did, Thank God for Mrs. Miller put her phone number on there because Dad was able to call. But parents are stressed and don't have a lot on their minds. So I think having a glossary would be important. Just and if it's voluminous, then refer them to the rest of it. But just the general terms would be good there. Okay.
So can I clarify something, if you don't mind? Are we having questions or concerns about the content of the report card itself, or is it more the sheet on the back? Because if it's the one-page item on the back, we can do several different things. One is, we originally thought that we would, in order to save paper and some money, we would put them back to back. We can most certainly put it as two separate sheets of paper, which would then maybe not cause the problem that Mr. Lee pointed out, where a parent would pull that flyer out, and if they just saw that side, might throw it away. We may be able to avoid that. We could also then look at possibly putting a glossary of terms in with that, and we could bring that to the communication subcommittee in the future to ensure that that is appropriate for the board. But maybe look at the actual report card itself and the content there, and maybe move to approve that this evening.
Yeah, we'll table that for just a second. We've got a couple more comments, but I think we'll get you out of here with the report card tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Lee?
Yeah, we'll get you out of here, that's for sure. And thank you, Ms. Alavi, for working with the committee to review this language, because I do think it's a vast improvement. And my concerns are, to your question, just on the back, and my concerns, because I don't think parents are going to go on the back. I don't think they're going to scan this QR code, even though I think it's a cool idea. And my last point is, I'm new on the board, so we had a history of calls and concerns after report cards come out where parents don't understand what they're reading and they're not knowing that they can go to the teacher and ask these questions.
To be quite honest with you, Mr. Lee, I've overseen the report cards for the last 3 years, and I personally have not received any phone calls about the report card being confusing. I have talked to some principals in the past, and they too did mention that they have not received an overwhelming amount of phone calls concerning the report card language.
I think we just need to give our parents a lot of credit. I think they're pretty bright. We hold our students to a high standard, and I think we can hold our parents to a similar standard. So I'm not opposed to having some kind of an explanation. I really don't think it's necessary, but I'm not going to fight everybody on it. But I would feel strongly that it shouldn't be on the back unless we redesign it, because maybe I'm in the minority, but my son, granted he's in preschool, we get flyers all the time that look like this, and they sit on my counter or they get thrown in the trash. And I don't know that I would see it on the back. I think we get a lot of calls saying I didn't get my report card, rather than I have questions about what's on my report card.
Okay, Mrs. Cloud?
I would just say, wrapping up, I know this is one of the things we've kind of worried to death. I do have some strong feelings about putting some words into parentheses, but, we'll save that for next year another time. I do have some fairly strong feelings about making it as simple for parents as possible. Not that they're stupid, but that they have a lot of commitments. And as you know, your parents, you're not going to, get everything down to the last detail, and some parents don't even have access. So I think we need to work on that. I do appreciate Mrs. Alavi's and all of your work on this, especially after coming to the board several times. And so, I think this is a good start, but I think we have the opportunity maybe to refine some of it for the future. And with that, I would be happy to move approval with all of those things in mind, because I know that you have a time schedule and need to get it out.
Mrs. Alavi, excuse me. We'll go.
Might I suggest, I'll second that. Why don't we approve the report card portion, and why don't we continue to work on the information sheet? And if it's something that makes board members uncomfortable, maybe we can put glossary of terms and some information where they can go online and maybe make it better. I don't think it's a question of getting a lot of parents complaining. I think more likely what you're going to find is parents who are a little bit not going to complain no matter what. If I feel very, like confused by something on the report card, I'm not sure I would admit it. I think that's something that you'd feel almost a little bit embarrassed about. Oh, I don't even understand my child's report card. And I'm not saying that they wouldn't get the gist of it. I'm just saying the clarity is important. This is important academic information. And there shouldn't even be a question that they don't understand those words or they don't understand the meaning that we're trying to get across. And I guess that's where I was going. I wasn't trying to suggest that they are not smart people. But I just think that I did show this to a number of people in my own family, which just indicates that my family may be less smart than most of our parents, because they did say that some things were confusing. So all I was doing was trying to convey that when we're speaking with parents, we need to do so in the most direct and easy to understand way possible. And it's teacherese, which is good for you and good for Common Core, is not always the best for parents. So let's work on the information sheet to make it good for everybody. And I will second that as an approval of the report card.
And just so you know, I wasn't saying that anybody up here thought parents were stupid.
No.
So, okay.
No. I understand.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the report card portion with the family communication piece being addressed at a later time and coming back here for approval, correct?
Actually, what would you think about just taking it to communications and getting that approval then? We understand now this is twice, that what you're looking for are somewhat of a glossary of terms, plus we can have a little information paragraph. I think we can do that without having to bring it back, unless you're uncomfortable with that.
Mr. Hunt?
I was just going to ask you, do you think we could also run it by the PTA? We always PTA president.
It has been, I think, already. We've taken it to parent groups already and some of the groups on campuses, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, so, but the revised one, maybe we could, I think, I'm comfortable with it going to communications, and Mrs. Cloud, you'll be back, so you can go on.
I think we can, between us, come
Are you
up.
okay
I
with
think
that,
we
Mr.
understand
Lee?
what you're
Okay.
going for here.
Okay, Mr. Lee is good with that. Mr. Hunt, you're good with that too? Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and you understand the motion. Everybody understands that? I don't need to repeat it? Okay. Please vote. You have a report card. Thank you. Thank you. Do we need to take a break, board, or can we just go through these next few items?
There's only a couple more.
Okay. Let's move through. I'm just checking here. All right. Our next item is item G2, is also an action item. This is a general obligation bond exploration timeline. I think it's Dr. Lewis.
Well,
Mr. Hunt?
Yes, I'm sorry, Dr. Lewis. Mrs. Allaby and I are the committee that asked us to come forward, and we, in conferring with Mr. Fine tonight, there's some new information that has just come available that I think it would be, with respect to what Dr. Lewis has prepared, it would be in the best interest of the board to table this specifically to the first meeting in July, whenever that meeting may be. I think we'll have some better information and clarity for the board.
All right. Mrs.
So that would be
Allaby?
my motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to table. Any discussion on that?
First meeting in July.
First meeting in July. Well, this will come back to us. Dr. Lewis, you're off the hook. Okay, please vote. Thank you. Okay, we have a board, wow, this is a good timing. Segues well into our next item, G3. We need to change our board meeting date in July, I believe. Is that correct? Mr. Fine, do you want to speak quickly? And then
That's correct, Mrs. Lockdawson, and we certainly apologize for this. When the board set its meeting schedule in December, we didn't yet have a school calendar. We ultimately set a school calendar, I think, by the time we worked through that, it was late February. The board has a policy for energy conservation. It basically says that we'll take a blackout week of shutdown wherever possible, the last full week of July. And because of the way the calendar falls this year, and we just simply didn't catch this nuance, the last full week of July is the week of the 21st, which seems very early. but it is the last full week, and you have a board meeting on Monday the 21st. And although it's certainly not a big deal to open this facility, the problem is based on the school calendar, we have an awful lot of staff who've already planned vacation that week, and so that's really our request to you, is either consider the week before, Monday the 14th, or potentially the week after, Monday the 28th, type of adjustment for the one meeting in July.
Okay. Mr. Hunt?
I would, Joyce, you can't be here on the 21st, so I would move, and because of Joyce and Robin, I would move that we accept the staff's recommendation and move our meeting to the 14th.
Is that?
Okay, I will say, based on the calendar, I planned my vacation to be gone the first 3 weeks of July, so I would not be able to come on the 14th. So that's, I'm out of
my motion.
out
Sorry.
of country then. So, Mrs. Alavi?
Possibly. What is everybody's schedule for the 28th?
I'm okay.
I spent all my money in England, so I'm not going anywhere.
Would the 28th work?
Are you good? That does leave like 3 meetings. It kind of spaces it with the August meeting.
It does.
With the 28th, I hate to do that to y'all, but anyway, if that's okay.
No, I think
Is it okay with staff and all?
Are you guys back on the 28th?
No, but they're going to be gone the whole week before.
Yeah.
We'll make that work, obviously. Maybe not everybody will be back, but certainly the core folks will be here.
Okay, that's kind of hard. I know you're going to have a board meeting right when you come back after blackout week, but maybe you can plan to get stuff done.
We have a board meeting in July?
One in July and one in August.
So we meet on the 17th and we meet again on the 28th, and we meet 6 weeks later.
Yes.
Will that be okay? And can they get the meeting arrangements made before they leave?
That is what we would do. We would do the board agenda the week before the closure week, so it would be out basically a whole, almost 10 days in advance as opposed to 3. That's not a concern. We will reevaluate any bid award kinds of things, and if we think we have one that falls in that time where the extension of time is a problem, we will put that on your agenda for June 17th for authority to award the bid subject to ratification after, or something like that. We'll work through that and discuss that.
Mr. Hunt?
Move to make the July 21st meeting, move that to the 28th of July here at the regular place.
Okay, Mrs. Cloud?
I second it, if that's okay with Mr. Lee as well. Is that, and the only thing I would say is, if absolutely necessary, we could have a special board meeting with the majority of the board members if we had to approve something or other. Yeah, absolutely
Always possible.
Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Alavi. Okay, so who seconded that?
I did.
Okay, Mrs. Cloud. All right, thank you. Okay, so we're going to move that to the 28th. So please vote. All right, thanks very much, everyone, for being so accommodating. All right, we are at the end of our board meeting. Come to the conclusion, and we have board member comments. Let's start with, let's start with Mr. Hunt. Mr. Hunt, would you like to?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I want to thank Joyce Threadgold and Chef Ryan. Y'all remember that at the AVID announcements, the young lady at the elementary school, little representative Maria Ayala, and I asked her the question about, well, how are your parents involved? And she couldn't quite get it, and it was embarrassing for her. And so Joyce helped me through it with Chef Ryan. We got to go over to Pachapa week go Friday and meet with her class, and she actually had the answer for me, and talked about how her parents are involved. And we brought her a nice fruit bowl. And it was nice also that it was a day that, and I forget the young man's name, it just went out of my head, but that is doing the buddy bench, the crane boy. And he was dedicating that day a buddy bench that Joe and Jerry Bonaminio had bought in honor of Ryan, who was a Pachapa student. So that was a very nice. And also ended up that Chief Diaz was there. And so I got to point out to the kids, I'm sure some of my Hispanic friends were going to be worried about me early, but I asked the kids, how many of you were not born in this country? You know, I got a few hands. And I said, Chief, where were you born? And he talked about he was born in Cuba, and he came to our country when he was 7, and that he didn't speak any English. And there he was in his full uniform there with all the, all the kids were very impressed. And he talked about going to school. So he knew exactly what, I handed it off to him, and he did very well. So I was proud of that. But thank you, Joyce, for that. I do hope the staff will look at the Coachella plan. Mrs. Cloud kidded me earlier this evening about being forgetful on things. Da Vinci thinks you don't forget anything. You just forget where you placed it up there in your head, and now and then you find it. I forgot that we had that presentation on the Coachella partnerships. It is really impressive what they've done out in the valley. This is a big county, and if we could, and Tom Donahue has that contact, Mike, and this young lady that came out was just extremely impressive. Do you remember that? And I just hope we can do that. Lastly, I want to thank Mr. Walker. I visited with Mr. Walker and his staff and got a tour of the facility out there and all that he's doing and some of the new things that he and Mr. Fine have been working on to bring over to his shop. I do think it, though, is important for the board, and we'll be talking more about this in the year to come, but that we need to find a way to, we need to endeavor as a board to bring the staff together in one facility as much as possible. You all know my feelings that the executive staff can be downtown, but I think Mr. Walker and his people should be with Ms. Paredes and her Common Core and all of that together. It really makes for a much better company. But there's an old story about Yogi Berra being asked about, famous Yankee catcher, being asked about a restaurant in New York, and he said, nobody goes there anymore, it's too crowded. And I'm concerned about STEM. And I had a parent actually who should bring this forward. But we have created, goody for us, great for the district, great for our staff that's pulled it off, and everyone, the parents included. But STEM has become so popular that a lot of the waiting list are our own fellow neighbors, RUSD, if I was to say it, taxpayers, where the seats are being taken by non-RUSD kids. And love the kids, but I would like to ask the board to consider this. I would like to ask Mr. Fine to poll the board, and if there is consensus, that we would have a resolution that we would stop taking inter-district transfers requests to STEM beginning with the 15-16 school year. We currently have 458 young people enrolled at STEM. Mrs. Alvey can tell us that's up to the 10th grade, I believe. So we're going to expand from there. 78 of those children, of the 458, so 18%, 78 are from outside RUSD boundaries. God bless them. But we have quite a waiting list, and that waiting list, I just feel bad when there's an RUSD resident is behind Moreno Valley or Colton, whatever, with all respect to those folks. But we need to begin to, and hopefully this is what success brings, that we will have to modify some of our specialty classes and other things, perhaps even core over at Bryant. But I would ask, with you're okay, Mrs. Lock-Dawson, that the superintendent were to poll all of us if there's some agreement there. And I'll hand out just this information sheet that Mr. Walker did for me, that you would consider that we would have a resolution stopping inter-district transfers into the STEM program 2015. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Duly noted, Mr. Fine. Okay, thank you. Mrs. Cloud?
I want to thank, again, of course, all of the volunteers that were honored at Frank Augustus Miller the other night. It was a very touching program since some of our best volunteers this year passed away. So thank them all. I wanted to comment just briefly on the community meeting that Mr. Medina asked the instruction committee to meet with, just because I thought about it. I thought, well, I should say something about it. He specifically asked the instruction committee to convene, and so we heard some community concerns about some of the schools on the east side. I did looked, because I was looking at the report card, which is a good thing. I looked up some of our stuff on our webpage and under the parent link, and I saw that DLI was listed, but our other programs of choice were not. STEM wasn't even listed. Core knowledge wasn't listed, and I think it would behoove staff or somebody out who is taking care of it to put that information on the parent link. With some of the other programs too, probably some of there was a lot of gaps in the parent link, and that's something I think we should probably look at it. And I was really surprised too that the recommended reading and some of the other things that were good. And last but not least, as we were talking earlier, I saw an article in the Press Enterprise about students transitioning into English, and our scores were not our percentages were not the best, and I know we're working on that diligently, but some of the areas around us have had great success. I think being the competitive district we are, we need to ramp up our opportunities and structure to get those kids learning English as well, because as I read in the column, that is English is the language of success in business and college. So my comments tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Cloud. Mr. Lee?
Just quickly, I know we gave Mrs. Parr a shout out at the last LCAT meeting, but congratulations to her at Ramona High School for being Riverside County Teacher of the Year. It's pretty impressive. I got to visit that class during the personalized learning meetings, and it was pretty neat to see all the kids there and all the progress they're making. And we heard from our dropout rate, how much it went down, especially at Ramona. I think a large part of that is her success there and her mentorship and leadership. So glad to have her on board and glad she was recognized. Again, thank you, Mr. Dunlap, Mr. Shearer, and the rest of the report card committee for putting that together. I'm glad we have a report card. And also everybody that participated in the LCAP, which is everybody in this room, especially our appointed committee from the community. I see Sandy Ramirez back there and Tammy Blackmore back there too. Thank you guys. So I think this is our last meeting before school's out. So this is my 6 months on the board, and I appreciate all your patience with all my questions. And I look forward to continuing my school over the summer and coming back next year better prepared and better informed. So thank you for your continued patience, and we'll see you at the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Yeah. No patience required, Mr. Lee. You're a delight. Mrs. Allaby.
Thank you. Just addressing Mr. Hunt's note for just a minute about STEM, and I understand perfectly where how you feel about this. I also agree that having our own students not get into STEM can be distressing. But I would ask that before we make a decision on this, that we at least get the feedback from the principal and the staff at the STEM school. And the reason I say that is because I've talked to them about this, and they have some strong feelings about it. We may want to ignore that, but I think they ought to have a chance to weigh in. So if you don't mind, let's hear from them why they think that's an important thing to keep. Okay? Okay, that'd be great. And then we can make our own decision. Really quickly, I attended for the first time, I didn't even know about it, called the Smackdown at Arlington High School for their Media Arts Academy, and it was fantastic. And anybody who can go next year, really, I would really encourage. It was several hours of music videos, fine art photography, photojournalism, PSAs that the kids had made, animation, fashion design. It was fantastic. I really, very, very creative, very enthusiastic, and really fun to watch. So very much I'm giving them a kind of a shout out. And then finally, I am not going to be at the next meeting, and I feel badly about it. This was a birthday gift from my husband I gave him a year ago, not knowing that it was going to collide with our next meeting. So I'm taking him to the U.S. Open, and we will not be back in time. So I feel very badly about that. So not being here at the next meeting, I just wanted to take a minute to thank Mr. Fine specifically for his help for the last few months. I just wanted to make everybody aware that the STEM committee that I was chairing, the visioning committee, couldn't have made the progress it did without Mr. Fine's input in the process, and that his willingness to look at all options about the STEM school really was the key that have helped us move ahead in this. And he has been very supportive, and I thank him for that. And most of all, I thank Mr. Fine for his leadership on the LCAP process. I think it's been just incredibly stellar. It was a complicated, it's multifaceted, it's incredibly hard to wrap your head around getting all that input from all those people. And with his leadership, he was able to get all those puzzle pieces pulled together. And I know a lot of people worked very hard, including our consultant, but I really credit Mr. Fine because I think that it is his achievement. So thank you, Mr. Fine, for that. And then finally, for the most efficient running of the district for the last 6 months in a very professional and efficient way, I want to publicly thank him and take note of all the exceptional things you've done in the last 6 months. Thank you.
Mrs. Cloud.
I should remind us, because I was remembering that our board meeting will not be on a Monday. It'll be on a Tuesday because of the Reef golf tournament. So for the public and for us, it will be on Tuesday, and I'm sorry you won't be there. And
me too.
We get to thank Mr. Fine later.
Me too.
Thank you. I don't really have too many comments. The only thing I did want to say, okay, I'm going to echo everything Mrs. Alavi said because I get to be the last word, Mr. Fine. Thank you. I really have enjoyed getting to know you in my past 2 years on the board. So, and I appreciate not just your leadership of the district, but your leadership of me when I couldn't figure things out. So I very much appreciate that. One thing I do want to just bring up to the board here is something Mrs. Alavi brought to my attention, which I think might be a neat idea. The Riverside County School Boards Association is putting on a program in October called Building a High Functioning Board. And this was something Mrs. Cloud gave me, and I thought maybe that might be something that our board might like to attend. I just wanted to throw it out there. Would you be interested in that? And I'll work with Cheryl perhaps to get us RSVP'd for that. And, okay. So that was really the only thing I wanted to bring up. Other than that, again, thanking staff.
Mrs. Lockdawson?
Yes.
Could we adjourn this meeting in honor or in memory of Mrs. Jensen, Stephanie Jensen, the wife of Mr. Jensen, who's a teacher at Earhart? I had not known until the other night that she passed away, and I would like to do that.
I will do that, Mrs. Alvey. I have a couple other people that I need to do that for, but that was the first I think many of us had heard of Mrs. Jensen's passing, and it was tragic too soon, but also bittersweet because I think she did a lot for the district. So we would like to adjourn tonight's meeting in honor of Stephanie Jensen, as well as Mr. Russell Kaufman. He was a special ed teacher here. He passed away on April 30th. And Ms. Sheila Mumford. She was a principal secretary at Harrison Elementary School, and Shamawa, and North, and Emerson, and she passed away on May 4th. So tonight we will adjourn in their honor, and thank you all.